Please give it up for our co-MC, Jamie Gier, and her special guests, Chandar, Pattabhiram, and Chief GTM Officer at Workato, and Sandy Ono, Chief Marketing and Partner Office at OpenText.
We got 15 minutes to hit a very, very meaty topic, is AI and transformation in it. And I couldn't be happier to have both Chandar and Sandy up here. Chandar with Workato and Sandy with OpenText. So I'm just going to delve right into it. And the first question is it's related to from experimentation to transformation. Both of you have been early adopters of AI, not just using it, but integrating it with your teams. And you both have sizable teams, so that's no easy task. I would say that with smaller teams, it's probably a little easier to experiment. So can you share with the audience a bold example of how you're using AI today and how it's truly reshaped or shaped your marketing team and what you're doing? And I'll start with you, Sandy.
Betty, I'm Sandy. I have the pleasure of leading marketing and partners at OpenText. We're about $5.5 billion software company focused on secure information management for AI. So my team, as Jamie mentioned, is about 800 people. I have about 14 functions that report into me. And we started using GenAI 2 years ago, partially because when you're in tech and you have to market it, then you have to start using it. So my challenge to my team 2 years ago was just adopt, just try, just experiment. And I'll point out a couple of areas where we really took it from experimentation to scale. One, first of all, was creative. So I have the pleasure of running my own in-house agency. Our creative cycles went from what would be 3 months down to 3 weeks. I did a whole rebrand within weeks of getting concept to out the door. And now it's really fun. Now, when we created our AI brand, which is Aviator, I challenged the team, said, every piece of marketing that comes out must be AI generated, just to get them to use the tools. So they did, and they were static, animated characters at that time, but now they talk and move. And in a week when we do our big trade show, they have now a music album. They've done music videos. We've generated AI music. So it's amazing what Gen AI has done in the creative field. The second area, which is pretty well known and tapped into, is I have the pleasure of the BDR SDR team. So a lot of prospecting, experimentation of tools, everything from research to outbound. And now we're actually redoing our inbound team, all based on Gen AI tools. And the three that maybe people don't think about that I've had a lot of pleasure in is sales enablement. So we were able to teach very differently. Right? Sales enablement, classically, you go and you develop all the sales stuff and you put it on the platform and give it to your salespeople. We started just giving them prompts and actually transform the way we teach sales. And my sales enablement, we just turn it on its head. And we've been doing it about 6 months now. So we're still early in the game of how to use which tools, how to prompt it, and just teaching sales completely differently, which I thought was pretty neat. My AR teams now change the dialogue with product, because they've now changed the way they communicate what you hear from analysts to what you should interpret, so how you engage with our engineering teams. And the last one is probably just the teams themselves. I told the story last night, but to get my people to adopt, they started using out-of-office digital twins. So they would create a digital twin of themselves so when they're out of office.
I love that example. I got to try that one, although I'm a little worried about what mine would say, what permissions it would give. Chandar, talk a little bit about how you're measuring impact. I think you had a bold example to share related to that.
Yeah, so I'm responsible for the go-to-market organization, marketing alliances, go-to-market operations, and incubation sales at Workato. And so I think when we looked at AI, right now everybody's talking about agents, but I think if you prequel it, I think the way we have started is AI workflows. And the lens in which we're looking at to measure the success, a lot of people are talking about efficiency. My lens to it is not about efficiency, it's about responsiveness. And as what is really caused is how do we become more of a responsive organization in marketing? There's two aspects of marketing, right? You're doing marketing and then you're running marketing. So if you kind of bifurcate that, and how can you be more responsive in each of these? So very practically for us, we have AI workflow. So the LLM is actually involved along with the workflow. Forget agents. Agents is something that's new. So when somebody comes to your pricing page and does not go forward with it, Previously, there was a latency loop between what they did and how you responded. Now the latency loop, you're closing the chasm between what they did and how you respond and when you respond. And so instantly you're invoking from the workflow an LLM to get the right content. If you want human in the loop, probably it makes sense and do that. So any inbound motion that's coming to your website, the response motion is immediate today, this AI workflow. That's number one. Number two for us, interestingly, on the customer marketing side is Gong. We talked about Gong, right? When somebody is using Gong, and let's just say in Gong, the customer actually said, hey, I really loved your product against the competition. I really thought that, we were better than X. That can instantly go into G2, instantly using it in just the AI workflow with the LLM. So you don't have to, again, the latency loop between that and doing a review. And the reverse of that, when somebody does a review in G2, which, by the way, is the number one source for ChatGPT. I learned last week from Sydney. It's the number one source for ChatGPT and the models today for third party. And somebody searches about your competition. And inversely, when somebody does a review, that instantly becomes a case study for you through user evidence of one of these products, right? With the workflow in between, and the LLM calling it. So that, to me, the responsiveness, and we talked about product marketing content in those pieces. I think, those are really good from that perspective too. But again, it's the responsiveness internally. We launched an enterprise MCP product last week, but the content that we got out in a few days for all of us, right? It's great. It's the responsiveness measure. And to me, those are like few examples of what we've done. But one thing we've realized in the process is you can't scale chaos. You can only scale creativity. And if you don't put the right guardrails in there, you got to be really, really careful. For example, everybody's trying to become content experts in the company. Our chief, what we call field CTO, gave us a video script of how we need to start our conference with, to the CEO and me. And the CEO actually liked it. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But you have to put some sort of guardrail, like, feed your brand ethos into the LLMs that you're using. So that, people don't go rogue on you from that perspective. That'll be what we're doing.
Excellent. Okay. It's very intimidating listening to how you put AI into practice, the both of you. So for the majority of us who might still be at the very earliest stages, probably phase 1 or sub-phase 1, according to what we saw yesterday, for the CMOs that are still trying to figure it out, how would you advise them to go from moving from experimentation to adoption? Are there playbooks, processes? Is it just start? I mean, we heard Udi say, just take a tool and start playing with it. So what would you advise to CMOs, the majority of us that are still trying to figure it out?
I think mindset's everything. So how you set the tone with your teams about how they can experiment, just even starts the dialogue. So that's first thing. 2 is use it and use it publicly. So I would be in QBRs and I'd be like, oh, can you just tell me that? And then I used to just Google search it, and now I'll see what the document says, and I'm like, but GenAI says this, guys. So you just do it in the moment so they know you're paying attention, right? So that's thing 2. And then thing 3, where we are now is we've experimented a lot. So we're getting down to a little bit more discipline, right? Document our use cases, document our data sources, document what tools do we actually prefer. And then thinking about what we're going to do to actually streamline the tools, create the guardrails. We haven't done it yet. But I think there's a level of maturity that you have to give grace to. And also letting go. I'm a control freak. I can admit that on stage, right? But, when you like control, this is not a great place for that. GenAI is one where you're like, you're not going to know all the answers. The tools are moving too fast. So you actually have to get the answers from the teams. And that's a big mind shift as a CMO to be like, I don't know the answer in this one, but I'm going to task you all to go draw some empty org charts and experiment with tools and come back and let's be informed.
Well, interesting question. I think I'll give a couple of answers. I'm just curious, when you go into this stage, how many of us work with our IT departments and CIOs pretty effectively today? Okay, I appreciate the answers, about 20% of the room. I think that's the big change we have to see as we go into going from experimentation to actionable AI. Because the CIO is going to be the CIO when it comes to putting stuff that's really relevant for your agents and stuff like that. So I think the opportunity for us, and I'm drawing a straight line just now through my company, we sell products to customers to build these agents and stuff like that. So I'm drawing a straight line through 200 data points. That is the biggest thing, that you have to work with the IT department much more as a CMO and your team to get these things together, because speed and trust, you have to be the right 2x2 of speed and trust. You can do a lot of speed and creativity with AI, but if the trust is not there with the CIO, agent sprawl is going to be much worse than app sprawl. And any CIO, she or he is worth the thing, is going to basically put the guardrails on it so you can't do it. Right, so it's really, really important for us to build that relationship. We do a monthly cadence thing with the CIO and their team. And so we've created this role called AI orchestrator. We don't call it that, but I think we should. Like the liaison between, the front office and the IT department to kind of figure out like what are the things that we have to go together and do. That would be the one practical thing I would say from that perspective. And then personally, from an experimentation standpoint, we are installing an MBO that every one of us in the go-to-market side of the house should have some sort of AI tool that we have looked at, right? I personally did a dashboard on Lovable. We were talking about Lovable right there with Carrie Lou, a competitive dashboard I try to go do with Lovable and stuff like that. So something that we can put an MBO and saying everyone tries it so that we have, I think the previous Uri was also talking about it. That'll be something other actionable thing that we can do.
Great. Get your hands on the keyboard. Okay. So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the human side of AI. I think it's weighing on everybody in terms of what does this mean for the roles on our team? What does it even mean for us as leaders? Chandar, you had mentioned in an email to me that the idea of humans in the lead. So implementing AI is not just about the tools. It has a huge impact on people and process design. So how are you thinking about your teams and roles on your team as you progress further along on this AI path? And I'm going to start with you because the humans in the lead kind of caught my attention there. So can you explain that and how you're focused on that?
Yeah, I was talking about this, like this idea of humans in the loop. And one thing, we've rolled out about, 12 agents across the company. So the aha in this process is one aha is like working with IT. The second aha in this process is, ultimately somebody's got to own the outcome. Right? The human is in the lead to own the outcome. When your lead generation genie or your workflow is not working, you're not going to fire that agent, right? You're not, right? And so some human has to own the outcome. And so the human in the lead has to be there when it comes to organizations. And so that's I use this, cheeky thing, the AI is accountable individual as much as artificial intelligence. Like who's accountable ultimately? Because these agents are KPI driven, outcome driven, et cetera. The good ones are. So that is the one aha in terms of humans in the lead to owning the outcome. So the good news for us is that's not going to go away. The second piece in terms of org structure for me is like when we look at our org structure, all of us, there's some stuff out there saying Salesforce reduced 50% more efficiency of their teams using AI. Are they eliminating 50% of the employees or not? Right? And so there's this whole narrative around AI is going to drive all these great efficiency, which is true. But from a CFO's perspective, what does that mean from a team standpoint, right? And so the way I've looked at it in terms of our org structure and org planning is, it's not doing more with less, it's doing more with same. So what does that mean? Is like next year, for example, if today marketing is spending 11% of your sales of ARR is marketing expense, pick a number, 11, 12%. Next year, when you're planning for this, if you're growing at 25, 30%, your numerator can remain the same. You're spending, whatever, $50 million, and your denominator is going up by 30%. So you can still do more with the same investment because you're going to have this AI efficiency that's bought into it. That's the way I'm kind of thinking about this. It's not about reducing a lot of headcount, but in a growth organization, how you're designing the org from that perspective. The last thing I would say is the prime disruption here is just rethinking the entire traditional org design. And I'm actually actively going through this, talking to Carrie Lou about this the other day, is if you're looking at traditionally product marketing, corporate marketing, demand gen and all these things, in this world where, disruption is right there for every SaaS company, where you got to be a lot more kinetic in terms of how you would be responsive rather than the traditional programmatic way, do you really need to look at the org in these ways or look at an org in a very different way and designing around kind of what is the outcomes you want to drive as opposed to the traditional functions? So it's easy to say it, it's hard to do it, but that's really where I'm actively in the process. For example, brand and growth. It should be or should it be and those kind of things. Think about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chandar, it's so funny. I'm doing the same, right? I fundamentally know in 6 months I need to reorg and I need to embed AI. But you have to start with what's your identity? Do you want to be more customer obsessed? Do you want to be more commercial truth? Like, what are you trying to get to? So it gives the team why they're doing this to actually go through the process. The one thing I'll add is, I've been thinking a lot about GenAI is an impetus for us to create change. It's a change agent in some ways, right? It's an excuse to have the discussions, excuse to do things different, to rethink your process, to undo the old. But it's also an opportunity for all of us CMOs in the room because it gives you a different seat at the table at your ELT. Because your CIO or CDO, whoever's charged with the AI agenda, they still know the technology. Do they know how to bring the people along? Do they know how to teach them the next skill? Do they know how to think about these things, to couch it internally, externally? That's what we're great at. And it actually gives you a different conversation. And the way I'm approaching it is I have to do it myself in my own org before I can go talk to my peers about it. But I see it, right? We work so closely with technology in our functions. MarTech is like the back of our brain. Everybody else doesn't really have that as much. So I look at my services and support people. They're not thinking about, I have to redesign my process in order to apply the agents in order to be able to get this thing done. That's how we always thought, because software has been a part of our lives. So bringing that skill to your peers in a different dialogue in your ELT is a huge opportunity for the CMO.
I love that, because it puts us out ahead and we're setting the pace for the rest of the organization, which is pure strategy, the business. Okay, we're out of time. That's 15 minutes that went by so quickly. Thank you both so much for sharing your knowledge and insights. You can talk more during the break. Thank you.
Good job.